Доброго дня, шановні учасники нашого
Good
форуму.
afternoon, distinguished participants of our meeting. Let's continue talking about different aspects of 5G deployment. I want to talk about certification of equipment for the 5G networks and assessment of Ukraine's preparedness, as well as we'll talk about international experience. When we talked about cybersecurity of 5G, we talked about Cybersecurity Act in the context of European legislation. Why do we talk about EU legislation? Oh, firstly, because we have association agreement with the EU, and also this is the most successful collective effort to ensure cybersecurity, because following the initiative of the General Assembly starting from 2017, they introduced on the UN level to research cybersecurity, in particular cybersecurity in IT systems, telecom systems, and the results were not quite informative and were not successful compared to what they managed to achieve in the EU. That's why we're gonna take into consideration the practices of the EU. If we talk about Ukraine, the factors for establishment of a system of certification of cybersecurity. First one is the EU association agreement. Second is signing of the agreement on recognition of accreditation of certification bodies, and the EU regulation 2019-881 on certification of cybersecurity. And there is some blank space you can see on this slide. That's not an accident, because there is an ad hoc working group as part of ENISA, and they are developing their requirements to certification of cybersecurity for 5G networks. So the certification system for cybersecurity must cover the elements that will lead to a holistic system. The requirements to assessment, so the body needs to be accredited. The mechanism for mutual recognition of certificates, if we talk about international activities and we talk about 5G networks, as our previous speaker said, Ukraine cannot possibly be in a vacuum with this network. So we will have to communicate with others, and there are appropriate agreements, and Ukraine joined them. So we talk about the mutual recognition of those certificates. We talk here also about the levels of cybersecurity certificate guarantees. We talk about the need for regulator that makes policies on cybersecurity, and also creates and ensures supports the instrument of certification and the activities, and also the need to have the bodies for certification of cybersecurity. That's also a necessary element. Ad hoc working group. We've talked about Cybersecurity Act, and according to Article 8, today, with due regard to those standards that we have, the ad hoc working group number 3 was established. As previous speaker said, it is based in Greece, They have all the regulations, all those documents approved, and now they are working on the methodologies for certification. This is going to be the uniform certification arrangement for the EU. But given the certain political aspects of the use of equipment for 5G networks, these issues still on hold. We will talk a little bit about certification of equipment based on other standards, not based on the standards developed nationally or internationally, but we will also talk about certification of equipment according to the producer-based standards, in particular NESs. I want to draw your attention to the following. Myself and our previous speakers mentioned that we have a lot of equipment producers. One of the leading analytical companies, Gartner, they published a magic quadrant. So it's a survey. And they researched the performance of all equipment producers for 5G networks. And the three biggest ones were Ericsson, Nokia, and Huawei. And they based their findings and results on the completeness of vision, ability to execute, ability to ensure competitiveness, reliability and efficiency of infrastructure, positive influence on profits, and ability to keep, retain consumers. So this is the quadrant, and you can see the producers, global producers that manufacture 5G equipment. We see those factors that I mentioned, and three companies lead the quadrant: Nokia, Ericsson, Huawei. You can see the this triangle in upper right square. Ericsson has implemented 5G network programs in 40 countries. They have over 50 networks. Nokia is losing a little bit in this competition because they have these rip sharks, the chipsets that they have not completed yet, and that's why Nokia is losing in competition to Ericsson. But they are on top in Finland. As to the Huawei, they rank lower in this top three because of political considerations. That's what Gartner says. So the law on cyber espionage. In China, they say that all producers must share every data that they become aware of. I want to talk now in the context of Ukraine. Recently, a very big forum on communications took place. It was a Madrid conference, and major equipment producers that you saw on this quadrant took part there and talked about their future. Huawei also prepared the biggest report that has been covered in media. They talked about the 5G next steps based on neural networks. I want to make reference to the development of the law of Ukraine on cybersecurity. Yesterday, we had the the meeting of the working group to develop this law, and one of the members also insisted on neural network, and I want to say that he makes a very right step. His vision is within the trend, because these issues were already on the agenda in this global conference. So I want to draw attention of the participants of this working group on cybersecurity law development. This is the link where you can get information. This is the kind of source of information where we can get at least definitions of certain terms, because it gives information about the kind of next steps, um, next actions, like the law on the artificial intelligence. It's going to be adopted soon in the EU, and so I suggest we just take this document for terminology, for definitions. Also, Ukrainian legislation must define this term, and we can take the definition from this, define the terminology, and we can take it from this document. That's what I mean. So what do we have to do in the future? We need to sort out the general certification system for cybersecurity. We need to prepare a pool of international standards that's going to be the basis for the development of certification system in Ukraine. We need to review the current standards prepared by distinguished organizations or a kind of cross-industry unions, associations. We need to review the current laboratories or institutes in terms of whether into their preparedness, in terms of 5G and cybersecurity, for Ukraine to understand which of the current laboratories intend and can be a certification agency to be able to certify equipment not only for Ukraine but for other countries, because the next step that would be the international status for our national accreditation body, to make sure that those certificates are recognized. Take actions to develop the certification arrangements for cybersecurity, cloud services, and equipment for 5G. We need to address the Ministry for Economic Development to review the list and structure of those committees. To and to take into account the most advanced technologies like the Internet of Things, cloud technologies, artificial intelligence. The ongoing monitoring needs to be in place for 5G and cybersecurity. Ukraine is still not a part, not a member of the EU. And but their achievements are going to be important for Ukraine, so we need to take them into account. For us to be able to research into these issues, understand where we need to go to in the area of certification. Ms. Karacha today said in particular, referred to the addendum 17. And that's going to be on the agenda for Ukraine. Take into account the current model certification, in particular NASA's. This is a kind of network that was created by JSNA and TPG. This standard of security covered all leading suppliers of equipment for 5G. So this March, Nokia in May in 2020, Ericsson in June 2020, ZT Corporation in July 2020, Nokia October 2020. Ericsson, their new equipment, their new platforms. It was in December 2020. So taking advantage of the opportunities of the leading certifying agencies, Ukraine can probably, and I say probably because we don't understand yet the whole picture with these laboratories and their readiness to be certification bodies. So that can be one of the possible tools for certification of equipment for 5G. And that could be that's not going to be something like reinventing the wheel, because a lot of countries do that, like Germany. Our colleagues from Germany said that Germany this May adopted a new law on security 2.0, and that requires really serious audit of the producers and suppliers of equipment in terms of cybersecurity, in terms of security. So to wrap it up, the globe is moving forward. The whole world is developing certification standards, the national, international, and in particular certification of equipment producers. And this is already embedded in the legislation. To be able to use any certification tool in terms of ICT, cybersecurity, 5G, a country must review its legislation and embed innovations, in particular new elements, specifically in terms of cybersecurity. That's why I'm calling on members of appropriate working groups to consider these issues and discuss that at the next sessions of your working groups. Thank you for your attention. I'm prepared to answer your questions.
Які кроки здаються
What steps seem to be most realistic and the simplest? Because the public authorities don't have very good institutional capacities. I don't believe that we can achieve every best result. I think the public actors can take a step, maybe two steps. So in your view, what is the most realistic scenario? Well, I'm not skeptical about public authorities. I've worked a lot there. I'm a civil servant, and I think that the public authority must not be complacent ever. We need to initiate this research as to the cost of equipment. We need to monitor to conduct this certification monitorings, and we need to discuss how the certification laboratories can be used, and how those tests of equipment of producers can be performed. We need to adopt those necessary documents on the governmental level and then start the auctions. So this is a step-by-step approach. You are quite right that the experts must be vocal, must be committed, and operators must be committed. If we combine those efforts, I believe that in a year, Ukraine will achieve something that we need.
Бути запущені на початку цього року паралельно.
Yeah,
Тобто,
these
якщо
processes need to start at the beginning of the year. So, if the expert community starts its outreach activities in a very sort of active fashion, then we're going to get somewhere. Because obviously passing government's resolution depends on the workload and how many documents they have got there. So, but yeah, a government's resolution is something that is much easier to get than a new law. So next year, we expect some licenses to be handed out. Yeah, the first auction is scheduled for June the 1st next year, so in about 6 months time. Yeah, and in 6 months time we could do the survey and get the idea of the cost. The problem is that Ukraine doesn't know the cost. Yeah, insurance, cybersecurity in parallel. So when I say cost, what I mean is the implementation cost for the 5G network, which includes the cost of license, which includes the duration of the license and the actual implementation, and also ensuring cybersecurity of equipment, so certifying the equipment manufacturer, or have a double certification like they have in Germany, so where you have manufacturer certification and then a national authority certification, and then making sure that the certificates are recognized by European testing lab. So once we get there, it will put us on a track towards towards implementation of some sort of a 5G network. So Ukraine needs to answer the question what the network is for, for some specific use cases or for general use. Yeah, absolutely, because what operators say, and I tend to agree, that within next 2 or 3 years, consumers won't need it. Okay, yeah, so then use the frequency bands required by the industry. Yeah, so private networks pretty much. So we're talking 5 or 10, or like a couple of dozens of private networks like that, and yeah, we actually had conversation. So what could be the potential use case for this? Well, logistics centers, and there are a lot of these logistics centers out there, and there are the ready solutions out there that could be deployed within a half a year, some mobile equipment. So yeah, logistics, then manufacturing, automated manufacturing processes, quarries, mining. So, a couple of dozens of different facilities that could benefit from these technologies over next couple of years. And that's it pretty much. Because what operators say is that, if we get like 24 projects within the next 5 years, then it's a success story, they say, and I agree. Yeah, I agree as well. You have to start small. I mean, look at the EU. They had this 7-year program. Ukraine passed it last year. So we just adopted our plan last year. So deployment will take a long time. So yeah, and I totally agree that logistics is one of the primary use cases for this stuff, given where Ukraine is located in the center of a transport network here.